So here we have the business rules table for this process. I put supplier and organ into the table, and we can see how they intersect. The questions we ask have to be in the context of receiving the organ. Can use different verbs, but that's the context. Okay? So for a single specific supplier, how many organs might we receive from the supplier? Could we receive one? Yeah. Subject matter experts would clearly agree with that. Could we receive several? You bet. Is it possible that we never receive any from a supplier? And let's say that the subject matter expert says, oh yeah, for sure. Okay. Now, never ask your subject matter experts things like, oh really? Because that sounds like you doubt them. Or never ask them why. You've got to ask different questions. So, under what circumstances would it be true that we never get an organ from an accredited supplier? And they might say, well, they might have gone out of business before they had a chance to send us the first one. Ah, okay, so gone out of business because one becomes one of the examples we've got to write up under that rule under supplier. So that's an event. Supplier goes out of business. So what I would do is I would turn around and ask the subject matter expert, do you want to keep track of those suppliers that go out of business? And they'll either answer yes or no. If they answer no, we don't care, then that means it's out of scope. Supplier goes out of business. So we would put that in our out of scope list. Supplier goes out of business. And this becomes our out of scope list. So you want to keep track of not only what's in scope, but you want to keep track of what's out of scope as well, because surely somebody will come along further down the line of the project and they'll say, well, did you consider those suppliers that go out of business? At least you can then go to your in-scope and your out-of-scope list and say, well, yeah, we talked to a subject matter expert, and we decided that we're not going to keep track of suppliers that go out of business. On the other hand, if they say, yes, we want to keep track of those suppliers that go out of business, then we add that event to our parking lot for the project. I'm going to add it here. Supplier goes out of business. And I just added it to the list. I can deal with this event anytime I want. So far, you can see that I've been going in order that I wrote it. But, I can go anywhere in this list and work from that. So I've just added it there. And I'll get to it later. I'm not going to become distracted at this point and start talking about what happens when a supplier goes out of business. Stay focused on that single process you're working with and stay focused right there. Okay, so we found the circumstance under which it's true that a supplier might never receive an organ from a supplier. Remember that when we ask that question, under what circumstance could that be true, that circumstance is what an event is. An event is either a circumstance or a condition or a situation that you have to be able to deal with. So circumstance really is another way of saying, so what's the event that applies? But it's better to use plain language and say, under what circumstance would that be true? Let's go to the next question. For a single specific organ, how many suppliers, for a single specific organ, how many suppliers might it come from? Could it come from one supplier? Yes. That single specific organ can only come from one supplier. We can get hearts from many suppliers, but a single specific heart can only come from one supplier. So there it is right there. There we have the business rules table for that one. And again, you'll see that it's a very small one.